Hello, good day. Welcome along on the continuation of my series, the reading of Joseph Priestley's book, Socrates and Jesus Compared. I'm going to read from his introduction to his book. The history of Socrates is so singular a phenomenon in the heathen world, and his general behavior and the manner of life to which he devoted himself have in them so much that resemble those of the ancient prophets, and even of our Savior, that they have always drawn the particular attention of the friends of divine revelation, though these have formed many different opinions on the subject. If we look into any account of the Grecian philosophers who preceded Socrates, or who followed him, and some of the most eminent of the latter were his professed disciples, we shall find none of them to resemble him, even in the general features of his conduct, though his education as a philosopher was in all respects the same as theirs, and they all fell far short of him with respect to purity of moral character. If we may depend upon what is transmitted to us concerning him by Xenophon and Plato, who were his contemporaries and disciples, both men of great eminence, and there were no writers in the heathen world whose characters stand higher than theirs. He was a very extraordinary man with respect to both wisdom and virtue. And as Socrates had enemies as well as friends, and his accusers might have had their friends too, had the accounts of Xenophon or Plato not been in the main agreeable to truth, it would have been in our power, as the age abounded with writers, to perceive some trace of their objections. But nothing of this kind appears. From these accounts we must conclude that Socrates was a man who from early life not only abstained from vice himself, and practiced everything that he thought to be a virtue, but one who devoted himself to promoting virtue in others, continually throwing himself in the way of every person whom he thought he could benefit by his exhortations or instructions. That by this means a considerable number of young men, especially those of the best families, of much consideration and wealth in the city of Athens, were strongly attached to him, and yet, that though he was very poor, and many of them were rich, he never accepted any reward for his instructions. In his conduct as a citizen, he was most uncorrupt and fearless, risking his popularity and even his life rather than consent to anything that appeared to him to be unjust. When he was falsely accused, he behaved with the greatest magnanimity at his trial, and when sentence of death was passed upon him, he yielded to it with the greatest calmness. He refused to solicit for any abatement of the sentence as a favor, and declined all the favors or offers of his friends to assist him in an escape from prison. When the fatal cup was brought to him, he drank it with the greatest readiness and composure, and died with much apparent satisfaction. The sentiments and principles of such a man as this lived in the most polished city of Greece, at a period the most distinguished for everything that can attribute to fame in arts, science, or policy, and yet the most addicted to idolatry of any city in Greece, certainly deserves to be investigated, and his conduct to be scrutinized. And this I shall endeavor to do in the best manner that the materials we are furnished with will enable me. Okay, so that's the introduction to Joseph Priestley's writings on Socrates and Jesus Compared. All right, thanks. See you at the next video. Bye-bye.